Well, good morning, everyone. What an unusual experience for us in Kansas City, huh? Um, Sitting at home again like we did during COVID, trying out new technology to go live and to still stay connected with one another. So thank you for joining us wherever you are, not just in Kansas City, but you could be anywhere in the world seeing and hearing us. So we are really, really happy to have all of you. So we sent out, I guess while everybody is still coming online and getting settled in, just say a few things that we sent out, the cancellation notice to a lot of people and in a lot of different ways. We probably had 7 or 8 ways to get the news out that we were canceling the service. But in that cancellation announcement, it said that we would do a live or a pre-recorded message. So just wanted to let you know that this is live. It is not pre-recorded. I am at home in my office, and Natasha is at home running everything that you see. She's doing the heavy lifting. I'm just talking. So you may get the full live experience with no rehearsal, no edits, no filters. There may be some background noise every once in a while. You may hear my paper shuffle as I change pages in notes. Our 110-pound lab Cooper may be barking for attention or wanting to take on a squirrel in the yard. And you may hear snowplows driving down the street or the neighbors trying to shovel their sidewalks. So I'm just hoping that you'll overlook those hopefully minor distractions that come along with going live. So I want to formally welcome you to this online live service. Probably the only real difference this morning is that we're not in the building, and so the music team is not here, so there won't be music, which I know is a huge part of our service. So that will be a difference. But I'm trusting that this is just a one-off, that by next Sunday it'll be warmer and clearer and we'll be able to be back in the building together. But want to welcome you wherever you are. Thank you for joining in and listening and experiencing Center for Spiritual Living together in this way. So we have been talking this first month of 2026, talking about starting fresh, having a spiritual jump start to the year. If you've been there or been in the building to hear it or watched online in some way, you know that the first week we talked about having a life by design, not by default. Which just simply meant we can create our own lives for ourselves and not depend on someone else to create that life for us. So we're living by our own design and not by default. The next week, we talked about the idea of original blessing, that we are made in the image of our Creator. And so we expanded on the original blessing idea by saying each and every one of us is an original blessing. Then last week, Reverend Carrie King talked about what to do when stuff happens and how to fix it. So today I'd like to wrap up the month by talking about making room and creating space, because we are all meant to grow and expand. But the question is, have we left room for that? Or is our life just too crowded for it? So I would imagine that we all have a closet or a drawer somewhere in our homes that are so full that there's no room for anything new. And to get something new in that closet or that drawer, we might have to pull out or eliminate some things in order to make room for the new. Now, you may have noticed that with your physical space and your physical possessions, but the same is true of our mental and spiritual lives. We are inundated with information. Most of us probably feel like we are in information overload, and not all of it serves our mental and our spiritual well-being. I'm sure you've all noticed that. So I hope that this message today will give you some helpful information about how to make room and to create space mentally and spiritually. And I'm going to leave it up to you or your organizer to figure out how to make more physical space in your life. I'm not going to take that one on. So you may have heard of the author Wayne Muller. He wrote a book a number of years ago entitled A Life of Being, Having, and Doing Enough. And what he talked about in that book is our tendency to feel like we have to be more, that we have to have more, and that we have to do more in order for us to feel like our lives are finally going to be enough. And he also talks about how what we really need is a more simplified life. So I want to take a look at that idea today, having a simplified life as a way of making room and creating more space. So simplifying or having a more simple life probably means different things to different people. But I found a definition that I think is much easier to remember because it's kind of global. We can use this definition in any part of our life. So it's really simple. It says to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. Eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. So it seems that the entire human experience is based on finding the places between all of the extremes in our lives. And there are many examples of those extremes and how we need to try to find that middle ground. So if we just look at our bodies for a moment, our bodies know that extremes are not healthy. We can't withstand extreme temperatures of heat and cold. And probably wherever you're listening from, chances are you know right now about extreme cold. I heard on the weather yesterday, I think it was Katie Horner, said it was so cold that you should not be outside for more than 30 minutes before you come back in and warm up. So it's just a way of saying our bodies cannot handle those extremes for very long. Also, our body lets us know about eating. Overeating hurts the body, that extreme amount of food. But so does excessive or extreme dieting or starvation. If I exercise too much, I hurt myself. If I exercise too little, my body doesn't function at its best. Our relationships need the right balance between time together and time apart. Not too much time apart and not too much time together, just the balance between the two. Our children suffer if they are treated too harshly or too leniently without boundaries. The natural world depends on the right balance of a number of things. It depends on the right balance of enough rain, not too much and not too little. Depends on just enough sun, not too much or too little sun. Even our animals, our pets, know this. Our dog knows when he's tired, and he has no problem finding his own way of stopping and most of the time taking a nap. So it's everywhere for us. Our bodies, our relationships, the natural world, even our pets are at their best when lived in the middle of all of the extremes. So a simplified life between the extremes, though, isn't just a self-help idea. We find this idea in religion and in philosophy. The Buddha suggested what he called the middle path as a way to end dissatisfaction. So when we look at the Buddha's life, it's understandable why he believed the middle path was the way to live. Before he attained enlightenment, the Buddha lived in the world of extremes. At one point in his younger life, he lived as a prince in his in the castle and had a life of extreme luxury and extreme privilege. But at some point, he left that life in favor of years of self denial, and he discovered that both extremes brought dissatisfaction, living in extreme wealth and then extreme self denial. Neither brought too much, the not too much and not enough, neither one brought contentment. So he adopted the middle way philosophy, living between the extremes. But that idea is not just in Buddhism. The Bible recommends a life of moderation. Greek philosophers said moderation in all things is best. So in July of the year 2020, an NPR segment said that the human brain can process 11 million bits of information every second. I don't know really how much that is. 11 million bits sounds like a lot that we process every second. But it went on to say our conscious mind can handle only 40 to 50 bits out of that 11 million, which means that the other 10,999,000 bits of information get handled by our unconscious habits and patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that we're really not fully conscious of. The point is, our lives are so overly filled with stimulation, and our attention is taken up by so much input that our minds and our spirit have precious little breathing room to respond from the spiritual awareness that we really strive to have. We need breathing room. We need it so we can hear our inner voice, so we can sense those intuitive nudges and make spiritually grounded choices for ourselves. So I have 4 ideas about how we can do that. 4 ways to create breathing room so that we can create more space for our mental and spiritual growth and expansion. So idea number 1 about how to get more breathing room is to turn I have to into I get to. And Natasha's gone to the work of creating a banner at the bottom of the screen for these 4 points. So number 1, turn I have to into I get to. So, do I have to go to work, or do I get to go make a living? Do I have to exercise and eat healthy, or do I get to make my body stronger and healthier? Just kind of a subtle switch. Do I have to, or do I get to? I read once that it takes the same amount of time to drive your child to soccer practice, whether you have to or whether you get to. The traffic is not going to move any faster either way. And I'm sure you know that and have experienced that. But I have to means I feel like I just don't have a choice, or I don't have many choices. It's just one more thing I have to do. But I get to opens up a possibility. So I used to take our grandson Mason to a cross-country meet that was a 30-minute drive each way. So I drive 30 minutes to get him there and then 30 minutes back home. And it was all for a run that took less than 15 minutes. So on the days that I had to take him, it was just one more thing piled on top of an already busy day. But when I got to take him to cross country, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to have an hour in the car of talk time with a kid who soaked up love and attention whenever we would give it to him. So it was really a win for him and for me. But if life is a series of I have tos, our life becomes limited and feels like we just have very few choices. I get to creates openness and freedom and even some possibilities for more. There's more of this breathing room that we need. when I get to instead of I have to. So do you have to or do you get to? Excuse me while I take a drink here real fast. So the number two idea for creating breathing room and creating some space is to unplug in order to plug in. So there are two people in our house and what seems like a ridiculous number of devices to plug into. There's televisions, computers, iPads, tablets, cell phones, probably just like your home. So unless we make a conscious choice, we are never really unplugged. We're always plugged into something, either literally plugged in or our attention is plugged into it. So it reminded me, though, in writing that when I was in cardiac rehab 13 years ago after heart surgery, there was a guy in my rehab group who spent his time in rehab on his cell phone making work calls. Even a couple of weeks after heart surgery, it was a challenge for him to unplug. So I don't know if you were raised in the country or not. I was, but what I noticed was unless you live in the country, there's likely a lot of noise in your life. So if you just Google the phrase noise pollution, you will likely find studies or information that show the harmful impact on human and animal life because the world is just so noisy. So it can be a challenge to find quiet, can't it? I'm sure we all feel that way sometimes, but I think we were all designed to need that quiet. Scriptures tell us what we say a lot at CSL, be still and know. It doesn't say be busier, accomplish more, do more, stay busy and know. It says be still and know. We need to have times where we unplug from the unnecessary so that we can plug in to what the necessary has to say. So that unplugging in order to plug in is another way to get the breathing room that we need in order to create more spaciousness in our mind and in our spirit. The third way to get this breathing room and create more space is to take your foot off the accelerator. You do not have to live at everyone else's pace. Someone told me once we all have our own rhythm for the way we live our life, and that we need to find out for ourselves what that rhythm is that suits us the best. So if a train is going full speed, taking your foot off the accelerator will not cause everything to stop immediately, but at least the momentum begins to slow and you can feel the pace of your life begin to slow down. So those are the first three ideas about getting more breathing room. Turn I have to into I get to, unplug in order to plug in, and then take your foot off the accelerator. Decide for yourself the pace that your life works the best at. And so there's one last idea that I have, and I'm not sure if I saved the best for last. Maybe it's just a really meaningful one for me, but it is to decide what's important. Decide what's necessary for you. Make that decision for yourself. Because if you don't decide what's necessary for you, someone else will be happy to decide for you. Maybe it would be someone in your family, a boss or a coworker, a customer or a client. And what about the culture that we live in, the messages we get from our culture, especially advertising? There is always someone telling us what should be important to us. So we have said for years, every Sunday at CSL, that we are a diverse and inclusive spiritual community expressing God as love. I started adding a question to that statement, and it's just for myself. You don't have to do it, but I did it for me. So here's what I say: we are a diverse and inclusive spiritual community expressing God as love by doing what? Where in this world can I be the expression of God that I say I am? Well, I don't know about you, but nothing slows me down and rebalances my life like serving someone else to make their life better. Because what happens, for me anyway, is that it connects me to a life larger than my own. So I found this story a number of years ago, and I thought it was just a perfect example of what happens when we serve others when they need us. So the story is about a town of Paradise, California, that had been virtually wiped out by a fire. The girls' volleyball team from Paradise was scheduled to play in a championship game the same week as the fire, but they lost all of their uniforms and lost all of their equipment in the fire. The girls on the team said they still wanted to attend the game, even though they had no equipment. So when they arrived at the game, the team who was going to play against them had made each of the girls a uniform. They had purchased new shoes and new equipment for them. They made them a meal after the game, provided each girl with a $300 gift card, gave each girl a large bag of supplies and clothing. And after all of that, they presented the team with $16,000 that they had raised for them. That's taking time from their own lives to connect with others who needed them. And I thought about that. It probably meant they needed to eliminate some of the unnecessary in their life to make room for the necessary and to make room for the most important, which was serving others in this case. So I may have shared this experience before a while ago, but it still seemed relevant to this topic. Several years ago, Mark and I spent 12 days in Cape Town, South Africa. And we ended up staying with a local family instead of staying in a hotel. So the family we stayed with was devout Seventh-day Adventist. And you may know that their Sabbath begins on Friday night at sunset and ends at sunset on Saturday night. So during that 24-hour period, there is no work, they don't do any business, they don't shop, and have no outside entertainment. That 24 hours is devoted to their family, to friends, to relationships, unplugging, finding breathing room, spending time together. And honestly, in my American brain, my first reaction was a little bit of panic. Because I was thinking, gosh, if I can't work, I can't shop, can't be entertained, what are we going to do? Well, they took care of that for us. They had a huge group of friends who were devoted to the same 24-hour practice of unplugging. So I think there were 40, 50 people, and they gathered in someone's home. And everyone brought this amazing South African food. And if you know me, that means I immediately bought into it when I saw all that food. But they spent their time together eating and drinking, singing, dancing, and just building relationships and connections. And during part of that time, I don't know exactly when it happened, but it was just an observation that I had that they were the kindest, most generous, gentle, giving people you could ever meet. It felt like they had tapped into a secret formula for discovering a simplified life. What was really important? What was really necessary? They had been devoted to setting that 24-hour period aside for so long that it was just a way of life. And honestly, it kind of made you just want to stay there. But we obviously didn't. We came home. But the day we left, the family who 12 days earlier had been perfect strangers to us and we were perfect strangers to them. They walked us to our car that was taking us to the airport. And the last thing they said was, because you were here, you are forever in our home. And I thought, what of all the things they could have said, what what was deeper and more meaningful than that? Because you were here with us, you are forever in our home. What's really important? What really matters most? The ability to simplify does not mean you have to quit your job, you don't have to sell all your possessions, and you don't have to stop living your life. Simplifying means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. I once read one of those necessary questions that I found necessary to answer for myself. And the question was this: how will you make your life count if you don't know what really counts in your life? I'm going to say it again. How will you make your life count if you don't know what really counts in your life? Supporting a girls' volleyball team who lost everything in a fire comes from knowing what really counts. Taking in two perfect strangers from the United States like us, visiting South Africa for 12 days and making them part of their family and their community, that comes from knowing what really counts. You need breathing room to hear and to decide for yourself what really counts, what's really necessary, what's really important, and not let someone else decide that for you. So I hope there were some helpful ideas here today that will support you making room and creating space for your spiritual growth, because we are meant to expand, we are meant to grow, but our mind and our spirit need room to do that. Turn I have to into I get to. Unplug in order to plug in. Take your foot off the accelerator. And last of all, decide what's important to you. Don't let someone else decide that for you. So if we were in our space on 39th Street, you know we always offer prayer support at the end of a talk, or tell you how to get prayer support if you feel like you need that. So there is our 24-hour prayer line, 816-931-2396. It is a recorded prayer from one of our prayer partners. It changes every day. I know people who start their day calling that number and saying, that's part of my spiritual practice every day, listening to that prayer. And then you can also go to, oh, there it is on the bottom. You can email prayer@cslkc.org. Every prayer request that we receive is confidential. Only your prayer partner who receives it, they are the only one that know it and what it's about. And they don't tell anybody else, so you can be sure that it's not spread around, that it's 100% confidential. So the other thing, as you know, if you are, have seen our service, is that at the end or after the talk, we have a few minutes of quiet after the message to just let it begin to settle into your heart. So I would like to still do that with us together here online live, and just have a few moments of quiet. So I'm going to invite you to just settle in wherever you are, whether you're standing or sitting or laying, whatever you're doing, to just settle in and be still and reflect on these ideas that I gave to you today about making room and creating space. So I'm just going to let us be still for a couple of minutes and just be in that quiet and reflect. And from every few seconds or every once in a while, I'll break in and just remind you of what we talked about today. So let's close your eyes if it's comfortable for you, and just be quiet for a couple of moments. So just one more reminder of how to create more space and get more breathing room. Turn I have to into I get to. Unplug to plug in. Take your foot off the accelerator. Let the momentum of your life begin to slow down. And last of all, decide what's important to you. Know what really counts in your life so that your life can count in the ways that you want it to. So before we close and sign off, I want to thank Natasha Ria Elskari for her immense talents of doing all this work behind the scenes, not only here online, but all the talent she has for what we do on Sunday morning. It makes it easy to just stand up and do what we do, knowing that she's making us look good as much as she can. So if you are spiritually fed by what we do, I just would like to consider supporting us financially. There are a number of ways available to support us. They are appearing on the bottom of your screen. So I just want to thank you in advance for considering it. Thank you for giving, and thank you for your great generosity. We want you to know we know that we can't do what we do without your support. So we take that very seriously, and it's a sacred responsibility to use what you give us in ways that make a difference in the world. So I want to just remind you real quick that next Sunday is a new month. It'll be February 1st, and there's going to be a new theme that I'm calling Asking Great Questions. I've read a number of times over the years that many times we don't get the right answers because we don't ask the right questions. So I'm going to be talking about that at least for a month. It may bleed into March, depending on how much we cover in February. So we're going to start with great questions to grow spiritually. That's the first great question. So I've got, 4 or 5 questions with each of these topics. So next week is great questions to grow spiritually. The next week is great questions to release your inner genius. Later in the month, we'll talk about great questions to know yourself better. So there's more topics and more questions. Those were just the first 3 that we're going to dive into. So would love it. If you're in person in the building as much as you can, we'd love to see you live and in person, face to face. But we also love knowing that you're out there watching us on Facebook, watching us on YouTube, and all the ways that you can connect with us. There's a banner there to, that's a great reminder. Thank you for putting that up. Our newsletter is really an important way for us to let you know what's happening, not just let you have what's happening during that month, but it also lets you know of special events that are taking place. And that was one of the ways we got the information out that we were canceling the service today, is from that email list and the only way we send it to you is if we have your name and email address. So it's really easy. Just go to our website, cslkc.org, and I think you scroll down on that first screen a little bit, and then it says, yes, sign me up, or some words like that. But it's really easy. A box drops down. You just type in your name, first and last name, and your email address, and then you'll start getting that e-blast or those newsletters that come out. We try really hard not to inundate you. Most months we just send one e-blast a month with the upcoming events. But when there's a special event or a cancellation, it's one of the ways we let you know. So thank you again for joining us. Let's say, I know we can't hear one another, but let's say this together wherever we are, and as our way of closing like we do every Sunday. I am a perfect expression of God, worthy of a life of love and joy right now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Stay warm and stay safe. Have a great week, and I hope to see you next Sunday. Thank you.